I was in the middle of a 12-hour shift at Bagram Airfield when my commanding officer walked in and handed me an envelope. "This came for you, Sergeant." Personal mail. I looked at the return address. A street in Austin, Texas. An address I did not recognize. The name above it stopped my breathing for just a moment. Mrs. Kristen Holloway. Holloway. My last name. My married name. The name I had kept after the divorce because changing it during an overseas deployment felt like one more thing I didn't have the energy for. I stood in that supply room in Afghanistan, holding a letter from a woman who had married my ex-husband, and I had absolutely no idea what was inside. I almost didn't open it. I almost threw it away. But some instinct I had learned to trust over 9 years of military service, told me to sit down first. So I did. I sat down. I opened the envelope, and I read the first line. "Sergeant Holloway, I know you have no reason to help me, but I'm begging you anyway. If this story already has you curious, you are exactly where I want you. Hit subscribe because every week I bring you stories that will stay with you long after they're over. Now let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Sergeant First Class Angela Holloway. I am 36 years old. I was born in a small town called Meridian, Mississippi, and I have served in the United States Army as a combat medic for 9 years. I have seen things that most people will never see. I've held lives together with my bare hands in conditions that most people cannot imagine. And I have learned deeply and permanently learned that the human body does not care about your personal history when it needs saving. Neither do I, but I am getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about Marcus first. Marcus Holloway and I met at Fort Hood in 2016. He was funny, charming, the kind of man who remembered small details, your coffee order, your mother's name, the song that was playing the first time you laughed together. We dated for 8 months. We got married on a Saturday in October with 30 people at a small venue outside Killeen, Texas. I was 27 years old and completely certain I had made the right choice. For 2 years, things were good. Not perfect. Military marriages are never perfect. The schedules, the distance, the way deployment changes a person in ways that are hard to explain to someone who has never gone. But we were solid, or I believed we were solid. My first deployment orders came in 2019. Afghanistan, 9 months. Marcus said all the right things. He said he was proud of me. He said he would be there when I got back. He said he loved me. I believed every word. I shipped out on a Tuesday morning. He stood at the door of our apartment and waved until I couldn't see him anymore. 4 months into the deployment, the calls started getting shorter, then less frequent, then 1 week. No call at all. I told myself he was busy, stressed. That distance was hard on both of us. I was managing trauma cases 12 hours a day in a combat zone. I did not have the emotional bandwidth to chase silence. So I kept working. I kept showing up. I kept saving lives. That's when everything changed. Month 6. A mutual friend sent me a message through the base communication system. 3 sentences. "Angela, I don't know how to say this. Marcus has been seeing someone since month 2. I thought you should know. I read it once. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket. I finished my shift. I treated 4 patients. I ate dinner. And that night, alone in my bunk, I allowed myself exactly 45 minutes to fall apart. Then I got up, washed my face, and made a decision. I was not going to let Marcus Holloway take one more thing from me. Not my focus, not my performance. Not a single life I was responsible for saving. I filed the divorce paperwork through the JAG office on base 3 weeks later. Marcus signed without a single phone call. Not one. I came home from that deployment to an empty apartment and a signed divorce decree on the kitchen counter. No note. No explanation. Just a signature. I stood in that empty apartment for a long time. Then I packed what I needed, put the rest in storage, and reported back to base 2 days early, because that was the only place that had never let me down. 3 years passed. I deployed again. This time to a base in eastern Afghanistan, 2022. I had rebuilt myself completely in those 3 years. New rank, new certifications, new sense of exactly who I was and what I was worth. Marcus Holloway was a chapter 1 had closed, filed away, and stopped thinking about, until that envelope arrived. I sat in that supply room and read every word of Kristen's letter. She wrote carefully, formally, like someone who had rewritten it many times. She told me she and Marcus had been married for 2 years. She told me they had a daughter, 8 months old, and then she told me why she was writing. Marcus had been diagnosed with a rare blood disorder 6 months earlier. His condition had deteriorated rapidly. He needed a bone marrow transplant. His family had been tested. None were compatible. His new circle had been tested. None were compatible. And then his doctor had mentioned something about prior family members, sometimes being unexpected matches, not because of marriage, but because Marcus had once told his medical team that I was the closest thing to biological family he had trusted for years. The doctor had suggested reaching out. Kristen had spent 3 weeks deciding whether to write the letter. She wrote at the end, "I am not asking you to forgive him. I am not asking you to forget what he did. I am only asking you to consider that there is an 8-month-old girl who needs her father. I will understand completely if you say no. I would understand if you never write back at all." I read the letter twice. Then I folded it, put it back in the envelope, and I sat with it for a very long time. But what nobody expected was the thing that happened inside me when I read those words. Not anger, not satisfaction, not the complicated dark feeling that maybe part of me expected to feel. What I felt was something much simpler. I was a combat medic. I had spent 9 years making a promise, not to the army, not to a contract, but to something deeper, that when a life could be saved, I would try every time, without exception. That promise did not have a list of conditions attached to it. It did not say accept when the patient hurt you. It did not say accept when saving them is inconvenient. It said every time. I wrote back to Kristen 3 days later. 1 page, clear and direct. I told her I would be tested when I returned stateside in 6 weeks. I told her I was not doing it for Marcus. I told her I was doing it because of the 8-month-old girl, and because of who I was, not who he had made me feel like for a while, but who I actually was. I came home in March. I went to the testing center in San Antonio 2 days after landing. The results came back in 10 days. I was not a match. I called Kristen directly and told her. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Thank you for trying. It means more than I can say." I told her I hoped they found someone. I told her I meant it, and I did. 2 months later, Kristen called again. They had found a match through the National Registry. A 23-year-old college student in Ohio who had signed up for the donor registry at a campus health fair 2 years ago and forgotten about it entirely. Marcus received the transplant in May. The procedure was successful. I never spoke to Marcus directly through any of this. He sent one message through Kristen. 4 words. "Thank you for trying." I read it once. Then I put my phone down and went for a run on the base trail. 5 miles. The same 5 miles I had been running every morning for 9 years. The same trail that had been there through the deployment, through the divorce papers on the counter, through 45 minutes in a bunk in Afghanistan when I allowed myself to fall apart and then got back up. I ran all 5 miles, and when I finished, I stood at the end of the trail and breathed. Just breathed. People have asked me since then, "How did you do it? How did you get that letter and not feel rage? How did you agree to be tested for the man who left you during a deployment without even a phone call?" And my answer is always the same. Because rage was never going to be the thing that defined me. Marcus made his choices. They were small choices dressed up as big ones. He chose comfort over commitment. He chose easy over right. Those were his choices, and he will carry them. But my choices, My choices were mine. And I decided a long time ago that my choices were going to reflect who I actually am, not what was done to me. I am still serving. I will make Master Sergeant within the year if my current evaluations hold. I live on base in San Antonio. I run 5 miles every morning. And sometimes, on the clearest mornings, when the Texas sky is doing that thing it does just before sunrise, I think about an 8-month-old girl in Austin who is now almost 2, who has no idea that a stranger in uniform sat in a supply room in Afghanistan and decided that her life mattered. She will probably never know. That is completely fine with me, because I did not do it for the recognition. I did it because it was right, and because 9 years ago I made a promise. Every time, without exception. I have never broken that promise yet. I do not intend to start now. If someone has ever walked away from you during the hardest season of your life, know this. Their leaving says everything about their capacity, and nothing about your worth. You get to decide what your choices reflect. Make them reflect who you actually are, not what was done to you. The strongest thing I ever did was open that letter, read every word, and choose to be exactly who I promised myself I would be. Every time, without exception.